Hey guys, Jason with HD Innovations. I'm going to go through the shuttle docking system installation. You guys have been asking for this for a while. I wish I had the time to do one of those cool montages with all the messages like boat mounting ready, boat mounting ready. Is the boat mount ready? How am I going to mount this to my boat? Boat, shuttle dock, shuttle dock, shuttle dock, dreaming in the dreams, shuttle dock, boat mounting. But I don't have the time to do that. So you can imagine that's what it would have been like. We are going to put these suckers together today, and I'm going to give you a nice little video. This is the shuttle docking system without the Larmac rotating system. This is the shuttle docking system with the Larmac rotating system. Now, we partnered up with Larmac. Tony's a great friend of mine. We partnered together to provide this because I think that he's got the best rotating system that there is on the market, and it works really well. So we just packaged this sucker up together to provide it at a great price for the customers. I'm not going to reference this one in this video because everything's exactly the same, just without the rotator. So we're going to start by assembling the whole thing, and then we're going to add the rotator to it. So I'm going to set this one right over here for now. All right, this is 3-inch track. This direct brand is from the company TraxTech. I like TraxTech. I think they make good products and they're affordable prices. So this is why I'm using this one in the video, and this is what I generally use too. You can use Tightlock, you can use Cisco. Cisco is another great brand. Tightlock's good too. Tightlock is on the, I would say like the lower end of them. Their price is a little bit lower and their materials are just a little bit thinner. Regardless of the fact, Cisco, Burt's, Tightlock, even Fingear. Fingear has track now. A lot of different companies. So it's all the same. The deal is 3 inches across and technically like a 1/4 inch of plate underneath these little holders. So they're all the same. This does not come with it. This plastic plate is my little show display that I bring to the show so I can have a nice surface for everything to mount on. I'm going to use this when we go to put the track system in here so I can display that. So for now, I'm going to set it off to the side. Okay, tools. This is an 8mm wrench. This is an M4 Allen. If I can pick it up. And this is an M3.5 Allen. These are all readily available in any of the little home toolkits that you would buy. So if you have one of those small little home toolkits that flop open, with like your little sockets and maybe a small hammer and stuff in it, it should have these 3 things in there. We didn't supply these along with it because we just didn't. So these are the 3 tools you're going to need. If you don't have an 8mm wrench, can you use like a pair of pliers or needle nose? Absolutely, of course. You can use a nut driver, any of those things. What you don't see here is a drill or a hammer or marking tools or a template or any of that stuff, because this whole system was thought out at the time of the shuttle creation. And right here, we have the pre-drilled holes, both sides. Okay, these do not take inserts or anything else because again, I designed all this at the beginning so that you don't need that. I don't like having to pull inserts into the plastic. Even with my previous design for the other company that I voted against that every single time it was brought up. I did not want that pull in the inserts in type of a system because it doesn't have a nylock on the backside so they can pull out. And if you don't tighten in those screws all the way when you pull the insert in, what happens is the first time that you latch that down and pull on that insert, now you pull the insert in the rest of the way and then it ends up being loose. That's just a failure point. I didn't want that, so I designed it better. We're going to get right into it. Here's the box. Notice this one says the Larmac 360 has the logo on it. Even if you're using the other one that does not have the logo, again, it's the same thing. So we're going to unbox this puppy. I'm going to turn it sideways so we can both see what's going on. So when you unbox it, 1 piece of foam, fold that over. Here's your docking plate, okay? This is 8mm thick, 6061 aluminum. Some people would call it aircraft grade aluminum. It makes no difference. It's just a term people use. It's really high quality aluminum plate, all CNC machined beautifully, anodized. You might see on the back here like almost like a silhouette of a logo. That's because when they were made, they were stacking them up, and this logo just put a little bit of a a silhouette on there. No one's going to see it. It's underneath the shuttle. So all the sliding channels are really nice. Everything's chamfered. Everything is just no sharp edges at all. So that's the plate. I'm going to fold this up. What you can do is just get all this stuff out of the way. If you want to set this back on there, you can. Now here we get down to the bottom part. Let's just slide the box back just a little bit. Okay, we have our, this is what I'm going to refer to as the backstop. This is aluminum, and for the reason being, I just wanted it a little bit lighter. I didn't want full stainless in the back. There's no need for it. This doesn't support any weight. It's just so when you put your shuttle on, it has something to sit to stop it from going backwards, to sit in the little grooves. So the backstop, we're just going to put that right there so you can still see this stuff. Okay, we have our hardware packet. We will sort that in a second. Everyone knows I'm big on sorting my hardware. Then here we have, this is the cool part. So this is the latching system for the side. Now, I designed this specifically because I wanted one piece. Again, I didn't want failure points. So you don't have a latch here screwed to another piece with very thin, barely any penetration. You have a nice one-piece latch that's pulling straight down, and it's pulling from underneath the bottom side of this plate. And that'll all make sense here in a minute. This is really nicely machined in the back. You have this all. Another great thing is this pin goes all the way through. So this is positive locking right through. So our hardware, let's go through that first, all right? And open this up. First thing you'll pull out is your D-pins. Now, 2 D-pins that are given with every one of these. These D-pins do not have the little tab on here for quick release. Some people like to be able to, I like to be able to pop it off quickly, but we don't want that for this, because what this whole job is to make sure that this latch does not come open. So if you have a quick pin on this and you catch that with your shirt or something, or a net or anything else, you could pop this. And then if that weasels its way out and then somehow you grab this one too, I mean, it's a lot of stacked up failures, but again, we didn't want that. These 2 pieces are the shuttle hangers, I refer to them as. And these are what go right onto the side of the shuttle. They look very similar to what I've made in the past because I really like this design. And when I made it previously, that's the way I wanted them, because that's why I made them. So these are really nice because I put oversized holes in the center and bigger countersinks so that the entire screw sits perfectly flush in there. And that way, when you're going to put your latch on, you're not interfering with your screw. So we have the 2 hangers. Now we're going to have 4 M6 flatheads here. These are what put on your Larmac. We're going to have 4 short little M4s. And these are going to connect this other processes up. And then we have 4, I believe these are actually M5s, these ones. And these are what connect the hangers to the side. And they have corresponding nylocks that go right along with those. So we're just going to put those up to the side for now and get those out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to put on our backstop. So right here in the back, there is this recess. And then you have your plate and there's some holes in the bottom of it. This goes in there and it slides right into that channel. And then in the front side, you have these channels there and they just slide like this. This is so this plate is adjustable. Whether it's for my shuttle or somebody else's, I wanted it to be able to be adjustable. In addition, my plans are to make it work right along with the bag. And in that case, it's going to adjust all the way out to the farthest point on those. So for now, we're going to put this flat down on the table, just like this. I'm going to turn it so you can hopefully see it. This is the worst table surface to do this on because it scrunches up. We're going to grab these 2 small screws. So 2 of the 4 of the small ones, like these. And then we're going to grab our small Allen wrench. And we're just going to put these down in there. Now, if you want to apply Loctite to these, you most certainly can. There's no reason you can't. I would go with blue Loctite. That way, if you want to adjust it down the road, you can do that. You shouldn't necessarily need to. They're going to stay tight because they're the flat surface. So we're just going to put these in here ish for now. We're not going to crank them down yet because we need to be able to adjust this to the shuttle here in a minute. And that will make sense. So We want it to be just snug enough to where they can still kind of move on their own, but they don't slide freely. What we're going to do is we're just going to adjust it a little bit larger than we need to. Kind of estimate, you know, 1/2 inch. This is 1/2 inch thick material. Kind of estimate that 1/2 inch, and then we're just going to leave it just like that for now. We're going to repeat that process with the latch hangers on the sides. Take 2 of your other screws here, and those are going to go right down into these recesses. Now these are going into stainless, and we undersized these holes just slightly so that when you put these in, they go in with some resistance. And I wanted that just essentially for anti-loosening. So you'll see you got to kind of crank this down in there, and that's perfectly normal. That's the way it's supposed to be. We're just going to bring these down until we just get them down to get just that little bit of resistance again. Of course, if you have other Allen wrench tools to use, you most certainly can. I would not use power tools because you are working with stainless, and power tools and stainless don't always like each other. They tend to heat up the fastener too much, and you could have gulling issues, and we don't want that. So I would just go, it's only a couple of screws here. We'll make it with regular hand tools. Just kind of keep checking it until we get there. Okay, so now we're there. Now you get a little bit of resistance. That's good. Let's go ahead and crank this guy in there. I think this one just clears on its own. So what I'm going to do is just go down until it hits, and I'm just going to back it off a little bit. That way we can still move this. Just went just another little snug just so we can, okay. Repeat that on the other side. Okay, so once I got those tightened down, I'm just going to go ahead and back it off just a little bit so that it slides once again. Try to get that resistance. Okay, that's good. All right, now the reason we wanted that resistance is because what we're going to do now is we're actually going to take our shuttle. Now, I understand most likely you have electronics already mounted on this. You have a battery already in it. You have all those things, and that's perfectly fine. That stuff does not have to come off. Nothing has to come off for this to be assembled. Your battery is going to have to come out, and we'll get to that when we do the dock hangers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this right down on there. Now this entire bottom recess here, this area, this plate sits inside of this. That's why I have this EVA foam mat on the top. This adds as both vibration brake and thermal brake. We don't want this cold aluminum plate if you're in cold weather conditions, like using it for ice fishing. We don't want that to transfer through potentially towards your battery. So we have a nice plate here. We're going to set this down on here, and it's going to sit right flush into all these grooves. Now the front of the plate sticks out a little bit. That's normal. It's sitting on the bottom, and that's the way that that's supposed to be. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the shuttle is pushed tight up against the plate. So if you hold your fingers on the front of the plate and the back of the shuttle and just make sure it's tight. So if I were to take this off, for instance, slide this plate out farther, and I were to put it back on, you'll notice that I can move it back and forth on this plate. We don't want that. We want it to be tight this way and then push this up. This is why we left it with just a little bit of resistance. Now that's good. Now you push that up where it needed to be. And then the same on the sides. The sides can't really move anywhere. They're just pretty much where they are. So what we're going to do is, I'll turn it this way for you. We're just going to take these guys and just push them in now. So now they're where they need to be on the plate. This is where it gets, I'm not going to say tough, but it gets a little bit more tricky to do it with the camera. Because generally, I would tip it up with it on there. What you can do is just lift up very nicely and straight so that nothing moves. And then you can go ahead and tighten these down. You want to try to get these, you want to get them fairly tight. You obviously don't want to strip them out, but you do want to get them tight. And they're going into stainless, and they're very strong. Okay, I want to do the back too. I don't want to forget that. These ones are going into aluminum, but still very strong. You want to make sure that they're tight. Now we're going to go ahead and do another fit. Okay, that's good. You can go ahead and flip it over, and you can check your bottom here. Make sure everything's looking good. Everything's sitting in there nicely. Good deal. So now that that part's done, we're actually going to install the hangers next, because I don't want to do the Larmac. This is all applying to both units. So if you don't have a Larmac, this will be your next place. You're going to go ahead and take your thumb screws out of the front. I already have removed mine for the sake of the video. I'm going to scooch over a little bit so I can be in here with you. All right, so like I said, you see the holes that are in the sides right here. This hanger is going to end up going right on the side, and it lines right up with those holes. Your M5 little flatheads go through the hole, and they go to this hole. Now, again, this is way more difficult for me because I'm not looking. Now, if you have everything in here, you have all your wiring in here, you most certainly, you're going to have to take your battery out, and then you can just push your wiring over a little bit, and you only need to just get it up in here and put the nylock on. So here we have the nylock. You use if you've never put a nylock on, the plastic little nylon part goes outward. You put the threads on first. Okay, so now that we have that guy in, we're not going to go super tight yet. We're just going to do the next one. That way we can make sure we get everything seated in place before we tighten them down. This one can go right through there, and it's going to go right. And you know, I don't try to look inside there because you're not going to see much. You're better off just using what I call like your hand eyeballs, where you just imagine in your mind what your hands are seeing. All right, so now that we have that on, we're going to bring up our 8mm wrench, and we're just going to go from the inside. This is so difficult. I'm not going to show you the inside because you're putting a wrench onto the nut on the inside of this. Now we're just going to put that on there, and we're just going to go ahead and tighten this down. When you tighten this down, it should automatically be right tight to the top surface. So the hanger will end up being flush right to the top. Now this has this little bend on it so that when it is all pulled down onto the plate, this surface that your screen's mounted on is actually being held down, like pulled down with it. And we're not just relying on these 4 screws for the top to hold on the screen. It's being all pulled down. I'm going to go ahead and finish these off. Now this whole system is designed, this is all shear load. It's not pulling outward load. It's not twisting on this. It's pulling straight down. So these screws are technically holding the plate to the piece, but the shear load of the bend on the top is what's holding it all there. Get this guy tightened up all the way. Now, I will say I have successfully put these on with the battery in place. I generally would use a nut driver, a little bit longer, that can go in, or a socket with a little extension. And then I just hold that nylock with my hands real tight, and I tighten the outside. So it can be done if you don't want to take your battery out. It's just a little bit of extra. It's not just these tools. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this side, and I might be able to let you see inside a little better here. I think this will work. Take these 2 guys, slide them right through. Now these will end up locating directly over the top of your battery. So as long as your battery is mounted properly on its side, terminals in the front, terminals this way or that way, it doesn't matter, then you'll be just fine. Go ahead and put this on there. Grab my little wrench. Okay, get that pretty tight. It's very difficult at this angle, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, now I'm gonna use the wrench. It's a lot easier to use your fingers the first time. So hold that on there. We're just gonna go ahead and tighten this up the rest of the way. All right, and that's it for installing those. So in which case, if you took your battery out, you'd put your battery back in. If your wiring was out, you just stuff that back in just the way it was. And then you can just close this right back up, put your thumb screws in, and that's the end of that whole process. Now what we're gonna do, so that was basically if you had this unit, so shuttle docking system only, that gets you assembled for our part of it. If you have a different rotator that you have purchased, maybe from Trax Tack, or if you're using like the seat pedestal mount or anything else, that's gonna be on you from this point out. To hook up, and whatever hardware you use and all that, that one is on you. So I'm just going to move this off to the side for now. We'll go ahead and pull this rotator out. So this is the Larmac 360, and it comes all pre-assembled. We have nice stainless thumb screws included right here. And then we have our 4-bolt pattern on the top, and we have the 4-bolt pattern right in the top of this. Now 2 of these holes use these sliding channels because I also have essentially holes for like a Scotty rod holder to mount on here, that 4-bolt pattern. So if you had like an adapter that went to, let's say, a launch track system or a tracker track system, and you wanted to use that to just hard mount it, you could do that. So we're going to go ahead and put this right up on top. And when you get this in here, I'll see if I could do this and show you. You're just going to choose those 4 holes that line up. And then, like I said, that's going to be these 2 holes and the insides of the slots. So these ones and the insides. It's a rectangle pattern, but it's fairly small rectangle. All right. So there's that. Now we're going to grab our 4 screws. Again, if you want to apply Loctite to these, you most certainly can. I generally don't, because I want to be able to take it off if I need to. If something were to happen, if I need to get underneath it, I just like to be able to get things taken apart. So here's where I'll throw in this little disclaimer. We provide you with a product, and we provide you with tools and also hardware. And obviously the assembly videos just like this on how to assemble all of it. There's general maintenance that applies with everything. So when you put this together for the first time, keep an eye on all your stuff. If something seems like it's loosening up, tighten it up, right? I mean, it's just the way it goes. So just keep an eye on your equipment, keep an eye on your products, and just general maintenance. Tighten things up from time to time. You gotta remember, if you're using this for ice fishing, it's bouncing down the lake. I mean, it's extremely rough, and just vibrations and everything else, and you're transporting it in a vehicle. And then in addition, if you're using it on your boat, I mean, boat trailers are insanely bumpy down the road. They don't have much suspension, if any at all. So it's just constantly just rattling. So we use nylocks and we use a lot of things to prevent that, but still pay attention to your goods and just make sure that you are, observant. So once we get these on, we're just going to go ahead and tighten them down. Okay, so now we have it completely bolted up just like this. This would be the point where you're sliding this into your track system. Now you might have a long track system. This thing might be, 6 feet long, and that's totally fine. You just have to make sure you take off whatever you're going to take off to slide it in to get to the place where you need to put it. I generally say the next step, which is clamping these on, I like to do it on a piece of track because especially if you have your shuttle already built, it's going to want to be tippy. I mean, you're putting a whole bunch of shuttle on to a little tiny 3-inch wide surface. Now I have positioned this pattern in a place where it pretty much centers it. But that also depends on what size screen you have, what size battery you have. That all changes the weight. So once we get this in place, we're just going to go ahead and tighten down our thumb screws underneath. And now again, you don't have to go crazy with these. They just keep it in place. It cannot come out of the track. It physically cannot unless the track broke in half. Now I don't see that happening anytime soon. So you just crank those down a little bit. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop our shuttle on. Again, if you have all your stuff on it, that's perfectly fine. It sits right down flat in there. Now note, when this is on the docking system, you cannot open the front door of the shuttle. Reason being is because this surface is flat right out the front and it sits down on here. But when you open the top, this cover goes underneath the shuttle. That's what this reveals for. So you can imagine if you were to set it down like this, it's raising that up. So if you want to open this up, just unlatch the sides and then open it up and that's fine. And then just latch it back down after you get whatever you're in there for done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to adjust these sides. You can see here, way too long, right? This is how we send them because we don't know what you're putting for other devices on here. So we're just going to go ahead and start twisting these guys down. You want to get it so that it just has a little bit of tension like about here. And then when you cam it over, you get that nice little click. That's all you need. It doesn't have to be starting with tension up here, anywhere else. It just has to be down somewhere down here. And so when you cam it over, it goes like this. Now we'll go ahead and do that to the other side. So here's where we are now. We're just going to pop that off. We're going to get this turned downward. It's stuck on there. A little little more yet. Perfect. That's where we want to be right there. Not crazy, not super tight. These hold over 500 pounds a piece per side. The shuttle doesn't weigh anything near that. All right, now that we have those in place, we're going to want to tighten up these jam nuts. Now, originally when I started the video, I said these are the only tools you need. I lied, because you actually need a 10 millimeter to tighten this screw, and I had forgotten about that until this point. So we're going to go and we're going to get a 10 millimeter wrench, and I'll be right back. All right, and just like that, I'm back, 10 millimeter wrench. Here we go. Now, what we're going to do, I'll try to do this so I can see also. You know, if you come in here and you just try to do this now and turn, it takes forever. But if you unlatch it, just like so, don't turn it. Unlatch the other side, don't turn it. Go ahead and pull your shuttle right off. What you can do is you can get up like this now. You can see this. Turn it sideways, and then you can put your wrench on it, and you can turn the nut. You can't turn the part that clamps onto the shuttle because that's already set in its location. So we're going to run this all the way up until she's tight. And something I usually like to do is sometimes I make sure that this is perfectly straight. So you want this to be level, you know, because otherwise when you clamp it on the shuttle, it's going to be crooked. So you can get that nice and straight and hold that. Sometimes you can use like another wrench if you have your little guy handy still. And then when you turn this, you got to get it the right way. But when you turn this, it's going to help you hold it in place so that you can really get a good tighten on it. It's like this. Okay, and then there's that part of it. Now that's locked in place. So you can see now, I tighten mine up and it's just a little bit off. It's just a little bit crooked. Good thing is that if you were to take like your small wrench like before and put it into here, if you give it that little turn, it's actually just going to tighten it a little bit more is all it's doing because of the way that the threading is. So now we can get that lined up nice and straight. That's good. And we're going to repeat that process to the other side. 10 millimeter, put this on the nut, hold that straight. Whoa, now hold that on there nice and straight like so. Just give her a tighten. Okay, check our straightness. Pretty good, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I'm just going to give it just a little bit extra here. I'm just going to hold down on the bottom and keep everything in place. And just give it a little extra turn just to make everything nice and perfect. Good. Now we'll go ahead and put the shuttle back on. And these should be just in the right spot. Perfect. Click, click, just like that. Now this is where the D-pins come in. Okay, we have our holes that go right through the bottom here. And then these guys are just going to go right through the holes, just like that. Then this comes out the other side, clips right on, and it can be just like this. Now that's it. Now there is no way possible that this can get bumped up. There's some other brands out there that use different kind of fasteners. I like redundancy. I like to eliminate possible failures. And, you know, the BRP style or the Lynx fasteners, I don't like that they do lock, but they don't lock reasonably. Nobody's going to actually lock them because you have to take a tiny little Allen wrench and you got to put it down there in there and lock it. And that's just not going to get done. So if a guy comes up with a net or something and he grabs onto that link fastener by accident and pops it open, you don't realize it. I mean, the thing's coming off. And I'm sure that they're strong enough, but I just don't like that. So this one pin straight across, it's not going anywhere. Go to the other side. Right through. And there you go. So now those are both on there. So there's that. Now, this is kind of tough to do when it's on this plate, but this whole system rotates. And that's the whole point of the Larmac. As you know, you bought the product, you know what this stuff is, but this should rotate nicely. It'll rotate nice and freely. So that, in a nutshell, is the whole assembly of the docking system. Again, when we get to this point, this is everything that we've provided. Showed you how to assemble it. You have it all in place. How tight your hardware is, that's on you. make sure to check your hardware. That's on you. And then the last part of the equation is I can build a whole system that mounts all of this securely down to the bottom of whatever I make. Whatever you mount your system to, that is something that you are going to have to make sure that part is stable. Because if you mount this to, say, 3/4 inch plywood, like marine grade plywood on your boat, and you mount it down with good screws, yeah, it's not going anywhere. But if you mount it to like a fiberglass thin top gunnel of like a 78 Sea Lark or something, it's not going to work. It's going to rip the whole fiberglass right off the boat, and the whole thing's going to go in along with the chunk of your boat. So just be sure whatever you're mounting to is strong. Make sure you use through bolts. Sandwich the material. Use washers. Just do your due diligence. Make sure what you're mounting to is good. And that's how we're just going to prevent possible issues. You have a lot of money tied up in this, a lot of electronics, everything. Generally speaking, I like to mount my stuff inside the gunnel. Not because I don't trust the equipment, that's not even remotely yet, because it's just nice to know it's inside. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this video. Again, if you have this version of it, which is just the docking plate, and you have your own rotator, perfectly fine. Everything else applies that we just talked about, except for you're just putting your own rotating system onto the bottom of that. If you have any other questions, I please urge you to first go to the website and check the product description. Jump in there and just read everything through, then read it through again, and then probably a third time, rewatch the video and just try that, because the amount of phone calls and questions and emails and Facebook messages I get is just staggering. So I ask you to please do that first. And yeah, I will see you on the next video, which is right after this, which is the pole mounting solutions for your Carbon Series pole. Thank you for your support.